A tough road loss, not one that I don't think sits well with any of us right now. I think that there's a lot of really encouraging things that we're excited about, and there's things that we know that we got to clean up, and we will do just that over this bye week. But I thought we played really hard on both sides of the ball, regardless of the outcome. We played really, really hard, and that to me is what matters, above all else. I think if you don't give up the 2 plays on defense and you're holding them to 2.39 yards a play, that's a pretty big deal. Obviously, the 2 plays exist, so it's not fair to necessarily say that. But we knew we were going to be in a battle. That's going to prove to be a really good offense with really good players, a very good running back, and I thought we kept them in check for most of the night. We just miss a gap, and if we don't miss a gap, maybe the outcome's a little bit different. But I like the way we started off. I like the way we came out into that atmosphere. That was a loud environment, and I thought our guys did a really good job of being able to block out that noise and just play their brand of football. We had 5 drives in the first half, and 2 of them end up in touchdowns. Another 3 of them, the first one was just a little discouraging. That front defensive line that they had was really, really good. And I think our guys adjusted and got a little bit better as the game went on, but we still had some critical errors in there, and we just were able to go back and really get on this film and just figure out where drives were sort of polluted is the word that I like to use, with some false starts, maybe a receiver in the wrong place, someone getting beat up front. There's things that set you back that you just got to be really, critical about, and I know that we'll do that. But getting ourselves really consistent, I think that this is a really good football team. I think that we're on the verge of something really special here. I believe that they have the fibers of a high-level football program, and I think that our guys stepped up in moments where it mattered the most. We just didn't deliver and get the outcome that we were looking for, and it goes on all of us, coaches included, myself especially, and we'll just continue to get better.
You mentioned their defensive line and it being really good. Was that kind of what limited? I know looking at the stats, George had a lower amount of carries. Is that something where you saw their defensive line and thought that Jordan Fuller was probably going to be a better response to try and almost bulldoze through it?
Yeah, I think, George did a good job when he was there. It was you were really in a situation where you were backed up twice and you had to dig out of that hole, right? And I think that the package we had for that was with, Jordan was going to play this week, and I thought he did a really nice job. He had a run of 7 and a run of something else, and he got us out of there. And I thought he did a nice job of that. And then sometimes when it's just, you watch a couple runs go and it's an arm tackle that brings someone down, they're just bigger guys. And, when you match bigger guys with bigger guys, sometimes it works out in your favor. I thought, obviously, schematically speaking, the +1 quarterback run game of being able to run the football, provided some really key moments for us and some major first downs. And then, when you go back to the pass and something's a little off, that's a hard thing about, throwing the football. Like when something's a little off, it's either tipped. I think we had 4 batted balls. I think we had 9 plays that went for -41 yards, and I think we had 24 others that went for 0. So you're just trying to find ways at this point of how do we get this ball moving forward through this defensive line and these linebackers, and how do we exploit that and just make sure that we're meeting, power with power at some point in time. And I think every game takes a different personality at some point in time, and at that point we felt like the drive of it and the power that we needed at that moment was important for us to be able to have, is just trying to dig out of holes and keep the chains moving and stay ahead of them. So we didn't find ourselves in the 3rd and 11 where we end up with a sack, or the 3rd and whatever where we end up with a tipped ball, and those was what we were trying to avoid.
You mentioned the tip passes in that game, and they did come at some noticeable times. Is that cause for a concern, or is it more so, like you mentioned, seeing the size of the defensive line that you guys were going up against?
No, I don't think it's concerned. Yeah, if we don't fix it, I don't know. I mean, I think anybody we play is going to be good enough to beat us. Period. This schedule is unrelenting, and I think that's a good thing. So this puts emphasis on us cleaning a lot of these things up. But we just fall off a block and then a hand shows up, and there's open receiver that we're throwing to, and we just can't get, we can't get the ball downfield. So, I think that the idea of staying on those blocks and all the things that come up with smothering that defensive line is something we have to do. This was just one that wasn't going to let you do that. They weren't going to accept being blocked, and they were good enough to say that they didn't want to be blocked, and they found their way, even on not the first effort. I think we did a nice job. It's the second and third efforts where they kind of showed up and just, had a big game for themselves. They did a good job. So, hats off to them at some point too. That it's not like there were moments we got beat 100%, and then there were moments that we had them, and they just, we did a really good job of matching the quarterback's hand, and that leads to the tip passes.
Now that you're on the other side of week 2, do you think the placement of this bye week gives you guys sort of an advantage in terms of cleaning those things up?
Yeah, I think that, I guess wherever it is, you just go until they say take a, you have a break. But I think wherever it shows up, it's an opportunity, to kind of reflect and get better on your own. But after 2 weeks, and sometimes off a loss is one of the better ways, or even like last year off of an average game, it's probably a well-placed, bye, just because of the fact that, everybody's ready to get back to work. Everybody's ready to lock back in and get immediately back to work and be as good as we think we can. I said it, but there's fibers here of a really, really good football team. And we just need to keep focusing on ourselves and not put ourselves in situations where we have critical errors that cost us, drives. Because once you, pollute those drives, it's hard to overcome.
And now that it's been a couple days, how have you seen your team respond? Are they pretty motivated to get back out there in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, I just met with Trent, everybody here is, they know that that's a game we should have won, right? They know that's a game we could have won, despite what everybody else in the world thought. That was a game that we certainly had. And I think everybody's excited to just get back to work.
Now that you've had the chance to watch the film from the game, what do you think needs to be cleaned up maybe a little bit when it comes to rotating Sluka and Barnett in to make sure you guys are using it to the full grand scheme of things of how you want it to be done?
Well, I think, again, every game takes on a little bit of a different personality, and I think in the first half we did a really good job of it. Matt came in, got some crucial first downs, and then he came in by the goal line and had that big run to put us on the board for the second touchdown. I thought that was really good, and I thought we got into the second half, the game, just after the sack and the strip sack for a touchdown kind of started to go a little bit of a different direction, and now you want to try to throw the ball a little bit more, but you can't throw it on 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11. So trying to push a little bit further and get ourselves to a point where we felt like, can we control the ball on the ground? Can we actually move these guys? And we did. We had a run of 9, a run of 7, a run of those things in there. And then, there were just moments where, we ended up going a different direction to the pass game side of it. And I think that's probably, we'll be better as coaches, significantly better in those moments. And I think now we had to use they each got to set each other up a little bit differently, that's all. When Matt's in there running the ball, he's got to be able to throw it once in a while. When Zoe's in there throwing, he's got to be able to run it. And those are that's the balance that we got to find, and I know we will.
I just want to follow up one of the quotes you said Friday, just with the rotation. I mean, both scores may not love the concept right off the gate, but when you kind of have a performance like Friday night, is it challenging to keep selling them on that idea that this is the best concept moving forward? Yeah,
I think you guys are going to look just at the quarterback. I don't care who's back there at quarterback. If we fall off a block and the ball gets batted down, if we miss a guy on blitzing off the edge on a run play, whatever it is, that kind of skews the view of that a little bit. They're both in there for different reasons, but both can do a little bit of everything, and we just got to make sure that we continue to use that the right way. But yeah, I just think that we can't drop a ball, or two. We can't run a wrong route. We can't, fall off a block. I don't care who's in there doing what. If that's happening, it doesn't matter who's playing that position. I think we got to do a better job, and we will, of making sure that we identify it. When I said they don't like it, well, nobody likes not being in the game. It's not that they don't like it. It's what do you do with it? How does it motivate you to continually get better and continually put yourself in a spot where, you keep getting better and better and better? That goes for every position on the team. The whole sidelines, everybody should be supporting that teammate out there. Nobody should love being on the sideline, but they should be excited for their opportunity, be locked in and support the guy out there and be ready to go. And I think that's an important piece of all of it. Obviously, you're going to look at the one position, but takes 11 players on offense to execute a really good play. And, we just had critical errors at one spot right at what felt like the point of attack quite a bit. And that's what we just got to, clean up.
Defensively, you guys played extremely well, minus just their 2, big plays. But I know you even said earlier in the week, like, hey, they're going to get their plays. It's just our chance to get ours. How encouraging is that for you, just knowing, hey, we can go up, we can hold our own against a high-powered offense like theirs and really play at an extremely high level.
It's very encouraging. And I think the way our guys prepared and the things that they did as they set up that week was phenomenal. They were calling out plays before they happened. That I was very, very impressed with it. A little more, the quarterback got away a couple times where we were free. We had two really important sacks where we got right to him, and one was the strip that was enormous. But then there was a couple others that we were free, and he just evaded us. He did a really good job of getting away and being able to throw the ball. And then he stood in there, and on the one touchdown pass, there's just someone blitzing free off the edge, and he stood in there and delivered. But I thought, our angles just got to be a little bit better in there on some of those. But the getting to the quarterback, not letting him out. But there could have been even better plays, right, that I know that we all feel like we are inches away from. But, I was very encouraged by that running back is going to prove to be, not going to prove to be, he is one of the better ones that, probably in the entire country. That receiver's probably a first-round pick at receiver, and the slot receiver is phenomenal as well. So those are things to me that, certainly I was really proud of the way we played, and I know that Coach Hitch and the whole staff, and I'm sure the defense, all together, every player really looks back and believes in themselves like they should, and now we just got to make sure that we continue with that. So again, it's just always about what they got to do today to continue to get better.
Historically speaking, this has been a program where when JMU plays a quote superior team and maybe it doesn't go their way, they respond really well after, and it bodes well the rest of the year, whether it's going on to win a national championship or playing for a national championship. You talk about how the guys have been motivated by this. How do you kind of hope this loss kind of propels the rest of the way and like the lessons learned coming out of it?
Well, it's through the growth that we talked about. Did we get better? Did we grow? Right, and that is really it. What lessons can we extract from it are the most important thing that we could possibly do. If we fail and do nothing with it, we're going to fail again. Right? But if we fail in that task right there and learn from it, everybody, myself, every coach in this building, everybody that's associated with this program, how do we find a way to get better after that, is the most important thing. And then it becomes a lesson instead of just a failure. If we let it just be a failure and let it live and, start pointing fingers and feeling differently about it, listening to outside noise, obviously we're going to end up in a very different spot. But for me, it's about our internal growth and how do we make it better. And I love, I can't tell you how many people at the end of the game of our own players are like, I lost that game. I just lost that game for us. I'm like, yeah, you didn't lose it. But the fact that they're saying that, that nobody's going like, oh, I can't believe that kid did this or that kid did that. They're all looking, saying, we felt like we individually, almost everybody felt like they lost that game. And that's a sign to me of a good team, is that you're not pointing fingers. You're looking at ways for you to get better and come closer together. That's how you need to respond, and that's how we'll respond.
How much did you think going against Hampton last year at UNC helped you guys prepare for this run game with Brown being another explosive back?
It's different. He's a different. That kid was different. That kid was just built different. That one was, you could be right near him, but this kid is quick and strong and fast. We just didn't ever let him get open. We never let him get out in the open until that final play. And I think there's a big difference. We had Hampton bottled up quite a bit. He just ran through a bunch of tackles. Like this wasn't that type of game. We just couldn't let this kid get to the second level. And I thought we did a good job of not allowing him to get to the second level. I also would, kind of probably push back on that there's a lot of new guys on this team too, by the way, from the secondary, et cetera. There's a lot of guys that weren't here a year ago that didn't play against Hampton, and there were those that did, but it was a very different style of running back. So I don't know that the lesson extracted from it is the same. I think you could go to the ULM kid and start to talk about him comparatively speaking to this guy and maybe some other running backs that we faced, but Hampton that was a different beast.
And I also wanted to ask about JT because it seems like he's getting better and better each game. And I know we've talked a lot about his leadership, but as a player, and I know he's been here since before you and came in as a walk-on, and now to be what he is, what have you seen him grow, or how have you seen him grow over the last year and a half?
Well, and the handful of other guys that have been here, those are the guys we should be celebrating. And I said it before when we bring in other guys and this whole transfer class, et cetera, everybody gets excited about that. I get excited about the ones that stay, right? And JT to come in here as a walk-on from year one and then work his way up, get a scholarship, and become a leader and one of the better safeties I think we're going to see in the entire country. That to me speaks volumes of the type of person he is and his ability to, his resolve to stick through a lot of things and continue to find the positives in every changing thing that happened in his 4 years here. He just keeps staying the course and finding the positives and leading. And there's nothing better than that. He's a special, football player. He's a special leader, and he's just a great, that's what you want the whole team to be built like, right? Mentally, physically, a lot of different ways. You want everybody to be like him, and he's just he is the glue guy that keeps this whole thing together, but then also produces. He's not just there to, build morale. He's there to actually show the way, verbally and, on the field physically, and not everybody can do that as a leader. So it's special that he's grown to that moment in his career.
Another one of those guys is DJ Barksdale, and in your defense, I think the nickel is so important for what you guys do. Obviously, against Louisville, you brought in a third backer, took a corner out, he bumps out to corner. How special is his play against Lacey on the reverse was unbelievable. How key is he to your defense and what you guys do, playing the nickel? Crucial. But then also to play the corner, right, position. Like that's you got to be special to be able to do that. And he is that reverse. That was one of the cooler plays I think we've all seen. That lineman's, looking out to the edge, and from the inside out, he just showed up out of nowhere against a very fast, very good football player. So I think that speaks volumes of just what he is. But he'll bring it in the blitz game. He'll bring it in the coverage game. He'll bring it in his own coverage game. He'll bring it in, take it on tight ends and tackling the running back. Like, he is physical, he's skilled, he's fast, and he's confident, and just a kid that is poised at all times. Like, he loved the challenge of going against that Lacey. He loved the challenge of that all week. That's all he wanted to do, was put me against him and let's see who comes out on top. And he certainly came out on top. You mentioned earlier about, everybody on all positions, you're fighting for playing time, and it should motivate you. We're going to stick with the quarterback, but do you see it motivating those guys the right way, the rotation that you have right now?
Yeah, any of its motivation, is competition. And I think that we talked about it before, but anytime you have a chance to compete, that's what you want to do. Again, we got to put people in positions that help us succeed as a team. That's the name of this game. And putting our guys in positions where they can help us succeed is what we got to do the best job of. And, again, on me, and we didn't do it to the perfect extent, but we'll grow from it, we'll learn from it, we'll be significantly better. So I think everybody's got to compete. I think everybody's got to go out there and prove it every single week. I think everybody's got to fight every single week. That's what makes the best teams the best teams. I think when complacency sets in, when people don't any longer want to compete, when people just want it handed to them and feel entitled about it, any position, right, that will break this team apart.
Do you feel like you're still searching for an offensive identity a little bit with the rotation at quarterback?
I don't know necessarily. I think we just got to be better. If we don't, I thought the first week we were great. I thought we did a really good job. I thought a lot of the things we did was sort of who we want to be. And I think in this one, it was a different game. It was a different game against different bodies of different capability, of, different size, of different explosiveness, of different twitch, of different strength. It was just a different game. And you can't just play your game. You don't just get to go out there and say, this is what we want to do. We got to find different ways to move the ball down the field, especially when you're holding a lead or when it's still tied and you feel like you can do it. It doesn't exactly work, and then you go in and you have a game plan and it changes, and it's just the way that football will work.
Take us through this week a little bit. What's kind of the week look like for you guys as far as practice and then time off for your guys? Yeah,
so they go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then on Thursday afternoon, our coaches will get out of here and be on the road, getting down to see some of the recruits and see some of our commits, and just make sure that we get a chance to, we can't see all of them, but a handful of them see games. And ultimately this week is about us, working on us. So we have, the things that we need to improve on by position, by offense, by defense, by special teams, and cleaning up a bunch of stuff. But, we talked about after the game, but 12 penalties of 95 yards, 4 batted balls, 9 plays that go backwards for 41 yards, and another 24 that go for 0. It's tough to beat that team, and here we are still in a situation where we could, right? So we just got to clean that stuff up and get ourselves in a position where we're communicating at an elite level, where we're handling our responsibility, and again, we're extracting the lesson from this without the emotion from this, and that's the important part. Is the emotion, it's good if it drives you, but it can't defeat you, right? And I think that's the best thing about what we got on this team right now. They all feel extremely motivated to get better this week, and that's exactly what they'll do.
Your early thoughts on Liberty?
I didn't watch a ton of them just yet. I was worried, they're more focused on us over the past couple days, but offensively they moved the ball. They're 500 yards offense again. They don't major in the triple like, maybe they would have in the past or he did at Coastal, but at the same point in time, they do enough of it. They got receivers that are good. A running back that's averaging 7 or 8 yards a carry. He looks, to be a formidable opponent. The quarterback we saw him a little bit last year, but he's a year better and he looks really good. I think that the defense is what stands out to me. There's 92 yards in the air that they allow a game, and that's a little bit different. They got some athletes on the back end, but they give up a little bit in the run game. So those are the things that we got to see. They hold on to the ball, they like to run it, and they don't want to put their defense out there too much, and then teams have not been able to throw on them, but seem to be able to move the ball a little bit in the run game. So we got to just figure out what this feels like. We get out there and have a better understanding. I don't necessarily know who they played and what their caliber of X or Y or Z is. So we got to figure out, are those 2 games indicative of what we're about to face, or is it a little bit different when we get out there? So all of it, comes into play. And again, I didn't spend huge amounts of time on it, but I know that, they're going to be really good. Any team on this schedule, you saw it, I saw it, we all saw it, from here on in has the potential to beat us. So we got to make sure that we button ourselves up and don't beat ourselves.
You said on Friday that you didn't think rhythm was necessarily the issue for the quarterbacks. There was a point in the broadcast where it seemed like the camera kind of
if you want to listen to Andre Ware talk about, he obviously for 3 hours talked about his feelings of what he felt the quarterback position needed to be for him. And I think that's fair. He played it at an elite level. He's an unbelievable, guy. Unbelievable. So I think that's really good. I don't care what the rhythm is. If we miss a nose guard that's running at the quarterback, whoever that might be, it's an issue, right? So I think those are the couple things that we know that we got to clean up and keep getting better at. But there were moments where we needed to run the ball. We needed to run it a little bit with the +1 run game. We weren't able to do it with just handing it off and running, through that defensive line and linebackers. So that was a lot of what we needed to do in certain moments, and we dig out of a hole. We could change that a little bit now. But when you're backed up because of penalties that are disappointing, that put us on the minus whatever yard line, those things were frustrating to me. But it's hard to execute your normal offense at that point. If you're not having too much success with it.
Yeah, less Andre Ware, but it did seem like the camera caught Alonzo at one point, saying he wasn't getting into a rhythm. I didn't know if over the past few days if you've talked to him or had the opportunity to just kind of reevaluate what you think is going on there.
Yeah, that's all part of it with, Coach Kennedy goes through that with them. I meet with those guys today as well, so that's all part of the conversation.
You did mention the penalties, and two of the ones that I wanted to ask you about were the defensive delay of games and kind of the explanation that was given to you, because that's a odd one to come up once in a game, but let alone twice.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the one, they just said that as we moved, our hands moved forward a little bit, and that simulated like we were trying to get them to jump off sides. The next one, though, was not, to me, any issue at all, and I think that was a little bit frustrating to me, is that we actually asked them, and they said, no, we're not calling that. You could still continue to move just as long as you don't move towards the ball. But I think someone from the back end or the one official on the side felt like they saw something different. And I watched a lot of football over the weekend, and a lot of teams were doing that, and nobody was getting flagged with it. So it was interesting that that's what they decided to. It reminded me of whatever the NFL game was last year, the first one, where the tackle was set a little deep in the backfield, and it felt like they were trying to make an emphasis of that. And they threw the flag, and they threw the flag, and they threw 4 or 5 of them in a row. And eventually, the broadcast was like, what are we doing here? And then next thing you know, the kid lined up in the same spot. They just didn't throw the flag anymore. I don't know if it was an emphasis for – I don't understand it, to be honest, because it was on third downs. It was crucial moments, and that's when it showed up. So was the emphasis on they were told, be really tight with this? Was that the case? I'm not 100% sure. But they said, we're not calling it. We don't see it that way. And then they threw the flag on the next one and said, that wasn't my call. There was someone across the field that tried to get an explanation for you. And the explanation was they felt like it was trying to have the other team jump off side. We were trying to get them to jump off sides, and we were just moving to our front. We did it other times in the game, and I watched, again, a lot of football over the weekend, and every team in America was doing it, and I didn't see one flag.
I just kind of want to follow up with that Shane question. Just not only kind of the competition, trying to get that rhythm, but mentally having 2 guys who were QB1 last year. They were
Yeah,
the
it's
sole
tough.
guy.
Yep.
Taking on this new role, have you seen kind of those mental challenges for them to try and embrace this new reality while also trying to do what's best for the team?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think it's tough every which way, right? I think that I think any position, but it is different. It's the most important position in all of sports. And I think that that's a hard thing, to certainly do. And when they have their moments, they have to maximize them, right? They have to be able to do that. And I think that there were moments where we did, and there were moments that we didn't. And it's a challenge for them for sure. And it's a challenge for all of us. I think it's hard to work through all of the play calls that you're doing for, you're majoring in for each guy. It's all part of it. But I think when they're out there, they have to maximize it. Again, I thought we did a good job in week 1. In week 2, I thought we did a great job in the first half. And I thought in the second half, we just got to be better all the way around. And it starts with me, and we will.